Hello, and welcome. My name is Charles Harris, and today I'll be giving you my persuasive speech titled Why America Should Stay Out of the Current Israeli and Palestinian Conflict. After countless peace accords and United Nations resolutions, the fighting and violence in Israel and Palestine continues. They have so much hate for one another that one of their clashes actually started from a single traffic accident. The most recent outbreak occurred when the Israeli Supreme Court upheld a ruling allowing a Palestinian family to be evicted from their home so that the land can be returned to an Israeli family. Since then, Hamas has fired hundreds of missiles at Israeli cities, causing death and damage. In return, Israel's defense forces have used its air force to drop hundreds of missiles, which has resulted in destruction of civilian homes and over 100 deaths. While America has already invested so much time and effort, America should not get involved in the current Israeli and Palestinian conflict. We should not get involved because we have so many issues that need to be addressed at home. All other peace efforts have failed, and both sides already received billions of dollars in aid. Now, this isn't the Lakers versus Clippers or the Orioles versus the Yankees. This is straight up acrimony. We could start with 1182 to 1903, when the first Aliyah and 25,000 Jews migrated into Palestine, or the second very soon after, where another 30,000 immigrants followed. During World War I, Palestine was occupied by Britain, during which time the Balfour Declaration was created. In the book titled The Palestine-Israel Conflict, A Basic Introduction, author Gregory Harn states the Balfour Declaration deliberately used imprecise language. For example, the establishment of a natural home for the Jews in Palestine. For Zionists, this was interpreted as a Jewish national state, while anti-Zionist, this meant a Jewish protectorate or sanctuary within Palestine. So basically, each side could determine however they wanted to read through the agreement, whatever was more beneficial to their point of view. So now you have it, folks. This whole conflict is really about one thing: land. You took my stuff and I'm going to take it back. It's flat out a lose-lose situation. There will be no winners because neither side can compromise against someone that they hate. Now, at the end of World War II, both America and Russia were deemed to be superpowers, which really means that we were now sworn enemies. Now, America needed friends, and at the time, Britain was broke after the war and couldn't keep up with its own bills. So it gave Palestine to the United Nations. In 1947, the UN passed Resolution 186, which took 56% of that present-day Palestine and created the country or state of Israel. In 1948, 4 of Israel's Arab neighbors banded together and went to war. Present-day Palestine consists of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The West Bank is controlled by the Madrid Fatah, while the Gaza Strip is controlled by the militant group Hamas. The two groups are rivals and have actually fought in conflicts. The Madrid Fatah suffered big losses in the 2006 election, which actually saw Hamas swept into power. The two sides have delayed current elections and cannot agree when they should be held. Now, Israel's going through a bit of political turmoil on their own. They've actually held 4 elections in the past 2 years and still have not been able to build a coalition government. In fact, recently, Israel's president has taken away the ability to form a government from the prime ministers to some of his rival parties. Now, this problem is complicated and there's really no solution in sight. Not only is this about Israel versus Palestine, but it's also about their internal divisions that need to be resolved as well. One of the biggest tools in America's toolkit of diplomacy is foreign humanitarian aid. The U.S. is often the top aid provider in the world. The premise of aid is that if you can help a country to become self-sufficient, you'll gain an ally, you'll gain a customer for your defense products, or flat out, you'll just gain someone who doesn't hate you. According to the Congressional Research Service, the United States pledged to provide $38 billion in military aid. That's $33 billion in foreign military financing grants, plus $5 million in missile defense appropriations to Israel. It's also important to mention that we are Israel's largest trading partner. President Joe Biden's administration plans to release $235 million of aid to the Palestinians, along with additional aid to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic. That aid will help provide schools, food, and shelter for people, but don't forget those people are all refugees. According to the Congressional Research Service, the U.S. gave Palestine over $350 million in the fiscal year 2017. Presidents Carter, Clinton, Obama, and Trump, and their Secretary of State have all failed to produce lasting peace accords or resolutions. The Camp David Accords, the Madrid Conference, the Oslo Agreement, and even former President Trump's peace plan have not solved the conflict. Now, voters wanted a steady hand at the helm. We wanted someone who was predictable, and that's why myself and many other voters chose Joe Biden. While his administration should not just isolate itself from the world, they should focus on other challenges facing everyday Americans. Many people have tried to reach lasting peace agreements, but none have been successful thus far. With police shootings, cyber attacks, gun violence in minority communities on the rise, attacks on Asian Americans, the president has plenty of items at home that should be prioritized. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. economy lost 22 million jobs between February and April of 2020. Since that time, many millions of people have gone back to work, and the government has provided citizens with stimulus checks. That's what happens when they pay attention to the challenges that are being faced at home. Now, Americans are still struggling to pay rent and even buy groceries. Well, before the pandemic, many in minority communities were already living paycheck to paycheck. The government should be focusing on eliminating student debt, improving access to health care, eradicating HIV, and a host of other issues. America's issues should be prioritized first, well before we intervene in foreign matters. Now, I've barely scratched the surface of this conflict. I've deliberately skipped over one of the most important but really complicated parts of the story, and that's that both Israel and Palestine actually share a capital, Jerusalem. That was the place where God resided. There's been so many smart men and women who just haven't been able to come to a solution that's worked. And to be honest, we haven't seen anything from the Biden administration. This shows that they are uniquely qualified to solve this conflict. In fact, our ties with one party of the conflict reduces our credibility and could be viewed as a disqualifier as a negotiator. Maybe both sides will work it out, but maybe they won't. What I do know is that America should stay out of it. The U.S. should continue providing humanitarian aid and support to both Israel and Palestine. However, America faces so many challenges at home and needs to focus more effort on resolving issues impacting her citizens. Thank you very much for listening.